Hello, everybody, and welcome to Riftbound Ramblings. I'm your host, Barrett, and today is October 14th, at least very early on in the morning for me, which is a Tuesday, and that means it is time to do another tournament recap. But as I was gone a little bit earlier this weekend, I did miss a little bit of the spoilers in the sense of two new legends being confirmed for Set 2 Spirit Forged. So we're going to talk about those ones as well. Of course, we have two tournaments that we're going to talk about that happened this past week, which is on the 6th. We have another Targon's Peak Ascension League, Stage 3 specifically. Two groups. We'll go over the top 4 decks for those two groups. And then we also have the Brazilian Riftbound League that played in a tournament on the 11th of October with 26 players. They gave us the top 3 decks that are overall on Piltover Archive, so shout out to them. We're going to talk about those decks. But let's go ahead and dive in for the two new legends. But of course, we've already looked at some of this box art. We've got Irelia, Fiora, Lucian, Ezreal, all in the little blades, and then of course Draven and Ornn. So, of course, you're asking me, where are the two new legends? Well, if we enhance these images ever so slightly, you can see on the left, we've got a swordsman-like champion over on the far left of the box, and on the right-hand side, kind of hiding behind this pack here that has Irelia on it, there's a staff of some sort with like a ribbon hanging off it. And of course, if you're familiar with League of Legends, we know exactly who these two champions are because they are so iconic. We've got Azir and Yone. So Azir, of course, being a Shuriman king, basically. And then, of course, Yone, we have Yasuo's brother, who is finally going to be joining us in Riftbound. And although we just talked about those kind of things, we do also still have the domain combination guesses that I'm kind of playing along with. And so now that we have Yone and Azir, we want to play a little bit further into the game and figuring out where they're going to be. Sadly, I'm obviously kind of a little wrong in my guesses of what I've done in a past video because I think Azir has to go in Fury and Order as I just do a little swapperoo with him and Lucian because we already have a couple of Azir cards that feature him, such as Imperial Decree and Sun Disk. Now, of course, Imperial Decree being on the Order domain, Sun Disk being on the Fury domain, I kind of think he has to go there, even though I think personally something like Azir could be really good and like calm in Order, but maybe I'm just wrong. And of course, we can get bamboozled here. This is not a tried and true recipe because I thought Fiora was going to be not in her domains that she has been given because of the decks, because we have On Guard, which features her on a card but has the Calm domain. She's not going to be able to play that card. But she, of course, can still play her champion unit, which is on the Order domain. So this leaves us with another guess. And I'm going to go ahead, and this is a terrible idea because I didn't do this with Draven. We're going to put Yone in Calm, in Chaos, just like Yone is in Riftbound already. And I'm not specifically saying that this is a smart choice for me because I didn't do the same thing with Draven, obviously because I've just put Azir in Fury and Order as well. It's impossible for me to put Draven there also. So there's just not really any true things. But I know some people have been kind of talking through the grapevine, and they think that Yasuo Yone, them being on the same domains, could be a sign of them being a little further in supporting the 2v2 format and putting two champions on the same domain, but playing different cards, doing different strategies, could be something we're used to. Also, just another Wind Brother makes sense. So then, of course, this leaves us with Lucian, who we need to reassign. And I don't really have a good guess here because I didn't even really like my first guess. Now that I don't have another Fury option to put him in, I think the closest for me is probably still on an Order domain. So I'm going to put him on Calm Order. I don't feel confident about this at all. I think he can maybe be in a Chaos domain combination, but I don't really like the two that are left here for me. So this is the closest I have for him. But as we get more of the legends and before they tell us obviously what the real combinations are going to be, this is kind of the updated guessing list, but I'm excited to see what people think aside from me. Now, of course, we're here for the tournament recap as well, so we are going to dive into the Ascension League in Group A. This is the 4th place Master Yi deck, and we have a dazzling Aurora deck to talk about. This, I think, is kind of the smarter / more go-to version of Master Yi to go for. And the units that you play inside of it can vary, of course. But the fact that this one is playing only 3 copies of Anivia, 3 copies of Deadbloom Predator, and 3 copies of Mountain Drake instead of some of the other high impact cards that we've seen for this kind of deck. Is interesting, but I don't dislike it, of course. Confront obviously is really fun when you can still play Confront and then you even play like an Anivia and get a swing onto a base or battlefield, I should say. And then, of course, we still have Ramp with Mobilize, Catalyst of Aeons, and Finder Center, a full suite of all of them. But I do like the Confront meditation kind of play, where you can play Confront, your Dazzling Aurora will give you a unit, it comes in ready, and then on your opponent's turn, as a reaction, you can just use the meditation to draw 2 cards. Keep some cards up in your hand, which we know to be a weakness of the Master Yi deck eventually. But yeah, 4th place here for this deck. Moving into 3rd, we've got a Victor deck, and I kind of like what this one is doing. It is pretty similar to what we see for a lot of Victor decks, which is play a bunch of small dudes, get some units on the board, use your character or legend power as well to make some recruits, and then on the higher end, use a bunch of those units with things like Grand Stratagem and Thousand-Tailed Watcher to help take down other people's stuff because you have a bunch of weaker units, and Removal is the name of the game. Hidden Blade, Smokescreen are going to help you do this. Cull the Weak, and then, of course, also Singularity, I think, fits this same game plan. This deck's playing 2 copies of Machine Evangel, which makes sense, makes some more stuff, and, you know, your opponent feels bad about removing that one. And in the sideboard, of note, we even have a single copy of Imperial Decree, which is kind of cool. And then also 2 copies of Shin, which I like a lot, and even more removal, such as the Overcosted Vengeance, which just says kill any unit on the board. So 3rd place Victor deck here, you're doing well. In 2nd place, we've got a Kaisa list, and this will not be the first one, of course, that we talk about. And I think the biggest thing to talk about here is that in the sideboard, we have a lot of room for the Acathian Reigns and the Time Warps, putting space for 2 of each of them, as well as a board wipe with unchecked power, which is just very different. And then also respecting the gear decks and the Dazzling Aurora decks by putting in those thermo beams. But the main deck itself is pretty basic of what we see for these Kaisa decks, and there's nothing wrong with that because we know that it works and it's very strong. So I like the sideboard choices, fully committing to those extra cards that are good in some matchups, but not great in all of them. And then in 1st place, we do have another Master Yi deck, but it is different because we are not doing the Dazzling Aurora deck. We are doing your kind of standard, what we saw a lot of success earlier on in China with Master Yi, which is you just play a good game all the way through. Lower costed units, higher costed units being Deadbloom Predator, White Flame Protector, and the Tasty Faithfolk having success more recently. And then, of course, still playing 3 copies of that Kiana because she is very good against Kaisa, which probably helped why we got 1st place. And then in the sideboard, the Snapvines having a little bit more respect and coming back. And, of course, the Rune Prisons, which I personally like a lot. Only mainboarding 2 copies of Sabotage, 1 in the sideboard, where we've seen a lot more of the decks only sideboard that card. But 1st place here in the Group A with Master Yi. Moving to Group B, we've got not just one, but quite a few Kaisas that we're going to talk about. The 4th place Kaisa specifically is mainboarding 1 copy of Acathian Reign, and then the rest of the stuff is kind of straightforward. In the sideboard, we have another copy of Acathian Reign, a copy of Time Work, Thermo Beam, etc., extra copies of Cleave and Smokescreen, and the 2 copies of Draven is kind of cool. It kind of is the same purpose of what Dr. Mundo does for the deck in other builds that we've seen, but doesn't get as powerful, but you don't have to recycle your discard pile. It is interesting. I don't know how good it is, of course, but it is still there. In 3rd place, we have another Kaisa list, and this one is mainboarding the Acathian Reign and also mainboarding a copy of Time Warp. Of course, in the sideboard, we have another copy of Acathian Reign, full suite of Sprite Mothers, and a Progress Day. But the main board, again, is pretty similar aside from the Acathian Reigns and the Time Warps. And then in 2nd place, that's right, it's another Kaisa list. And this one not mainboarding either Acathian Reign or Time Warp, instead making room for things like 1 copy of Singularity, 2 copies of Sprite Mother, a Legion Rearguard even, and then in the sideboard playing 2 copies of Acathian Reign, 1 copy of Time Warp, another Singularity, Progress Day, extra Smokescreen, and 2 more copies of Legion Rearguard. So at least in this group, this was the most successful Kaisa, and it's funny because the first one we talked about mainboarded Acathian Reign, the second one we talked about mainboarded Acathian Reign and Time Warp, and this one mainboarded none of those cards. So very interesting to see the different levels of what that top end looks like in this deck, at least for the main board. And then for 1st place, my favorite character in the game right now is Set the Boss, and I like this deck a lot. I wonder if this is the same guy that played Set into Targon's Peak last time that we went through it, who got, I want to say, 2nd or 3rd in his group. But now this is getting 1st place, and the biggest adaptation I think we've kind of seen is that there's now a main board copy of the Body Domain Misfortune. But the Lee Sins, the Fioras, the Kianas are all still here. Also the 3 copies of the set from the Body Domain as well. And then, of course, in the sideboard, we still have the Unyielding Spirit. It's one of the big reasons to play Body, and the Salvage and Leona as well. So, getting first place here with set, I'm very happy about that, but this deck and character is very strong. Moving on to the tournament to talk about, we have the Brazilian Riftbound League, and we only have the top 3 decks to talk about here specifically from the 26-player event. And the third place deck is an Annie deck, which is great because we have seen this character gain a lot of traction, at least in the past couple events. And of course, the whole name of the game is you play good, strong units like Vayne, Kaisa, and Darius. But the goal is that you play a bunch of these 2-cost spells that you can play on your opponent's turn, because we're always going to have at least 2 of our runes ready, such as Ride the Wind, Flash, etc. And fight or flight. If you keep a couple more runes, one specifically, you can also play things like Void Seeker. So the deck is cool, and it can still play all these nice things. And in the sideboard, you have even more tricks, things like Rebuke and Gusts as well. And the Maddening Marauders, I like this card a lot, but it has not seen a lot of play, so it's really cool to see it in the sideboard here for this Annie deck. In second place, we have a Jinx list, which we haven't talked about in a while. And not only that, it is a mono Fury domain Jinx list, meaning every single card in here only costs Fury power cost, except obviously the cards that you're allowed to spend for both, such as Super Mega Death Rocket. And I think the idea here is this is very much doing the let's use spells for removal for things like Immortal Phoenix, and then also when you conquer battlefields, you can grab your Death Rockets back, so they synergize with themselves. But it does cost a lot of power to do so, which is why there's 3 Seal of Rages here, and also why we're only playing Fury, so that we never whiff on having all of the power cost for those cards. It's very cool and exciting to see the aggro deck like this get second and do well even over things like the Annie deck. But it did only get second because in first place, we have Kaisa, of course, who is still continuing her dominating spree. And this list looks very similar to some of the other stuff that we talked about earlier. Not mainly boarding any copies of Acathian Rain or Time Warp, but instead just sideboarding 2 copies of Time Warp, some Sprite Mothers, and an extra Thousand-Tailed Watcher, Singularity, and Smokescreen. Very straightforward, does the same idea. This deck is just very good. So, if you're testing right now and you're playing into this, you understand what it's good into, but it doesn't mean it's winning everything, right? We still see success from things like Master Yi, the set taking down a whole slew of Kaisas to win that other group from that other event that we talked about. So there are other things to play, but she is very strong. And that's going to sum up this video for today, guys. Obviously, I'm hoping for more Spirit Forge spoilers from later this week. So, of course, I'll make any videos with any new information that we get for that kind of stuff. But aside from that, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and comment down below if you think I'm wrong in some of my domain combinations guesses for the legends that have been revealed to us. But there are only 3 more legends to go and be revealed for that set, so we're getting close to that. Also, World Season is happening, as literally after I'm done recording this video, I will be watching the play-in stage of T1 versus IG, and so they might give us some more information in Riftbound regards, because it is also taking place in China. But of course, subscribe to the channel so you never miss a video just like this one, and I'll see you all in the next one.